Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell the truth about silver. Today is Monday the 12th of June 2017, and as promised on Saturday, we're going to discuss the question, did former FBI Director Comey set up President Trump to lead to his own impeachment? Last week, former FBI Director James Comey gave testimony to the Senate Intelligence Committee about his interactions with President Trump. Much has already been written on this, and we do not wish simply to rehash the old arguments or, quite frankly, take any form of partisan line either pro or anti the president. What struck us, and very few people have remarked upon, is that from the very beginning, as well as covering his back, Director Comey has also been collating evidence and allowing President Trump to commit acts which may be construed later as solid examples of obstruction of justice, a crime which could be committed even if the original investigation into Russian involvement proves to be a damp squib. Let us explain. The deep state, or the intelligence services and certain government officials, if you like, are aware of President Trump's past. The suspicion of mafia involvement ranks high, especially when dealing in New York real estate in the 70s, 80s, and to a lesser extent the 90s. President Trump has been involved with a number of conspiracy moguls, such as Alex Jones, and has not been averse to telling untruths, allowing his surrogates to spread conspiracy propaganda, such as Roger Stone, and even pretending to be his own publicist. More concerning has been how he has been able to fund his building operations after having 6 commercial bankruptcies to his name, and where it was quite obvious within US and European financial circles that this man was a high-risk operator, of such magnitude that had it been you or us, there is no way in which we would ever obtain funding, despite the level of physical security we may be able to put up in support of such an application. Thereby, the very strong suspicion that his projects have been funded by Russia or Russian banks. So why do we say that we believe it is possible that Comey has allowed President Trump to walk down his own path of impeachment? Well, firstly, the establishment do not want him. He won the election. His job is done. Mike Pence is there to take over, as he is an establishment hack. So is Reince Priebus, and so is the current House Speaker, Congressman Paul Ryan. Donald Trump has served his purpose. They thought initially that they may be able to control him, and to some extent they have. However, his modus operandi is such that he is both impulsive and frankly dismissive of what the establishment truly wants. European leaders do not take him seriously, and he will shortly discover that he will become increasingly isolated despite his position as leader of the free world. Anyway, back to Comey. To paraphrase him, he concluded that from the very first meeting with then President-elect Trump, he decided to take notes, as he could not trust him, and was suspicious of his motives. Despite this, he still met with the president privately on a number of occasions and held numerous telephone conversations with him, without making it abundantly clear that in doing so he was compromising both of their positions. he asked the Attorney General not to leave him alone with the President. When challenged, why did he just simply not refuse? He admitted to a degree of cowardice and bad judgment. Really? An experienced FBI officer, well-versed and trained in legal affairs, with a number of successful hard-nosed convictions and actions to his name, was afraid? Acting Attorney General Sally Yates was fired by President Trump in January for standing up to him and failing to implement the immigration ban he demanded, and shortly after warning Attorney General Sessions against General Flynn. She was not afraid. Preet Bharara, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, was fired in March for refusing to return the President's personal phone calls and complaining to Attorney General Sessions about the calls, making the comment, quote, "The number of times I would have been expected to be called by the President of the United States would be 0, unquote. Shortly after, he was fired. Nevertheless, he was not afraid to upset the President by not allowing improper contact between them. Now, we are not here arguing whether the President should or should not phone these people or have private meetings with them, though, to be frank, in normal political, diplomatic circles, it is deemed inappropriate. What we are debating is whether we truly believe that Director Comey was truly afraid or thoughtless, or to use his words, stunned. We suggest that he wasn't. We believe he did fear he may lose his job before all of the necessary evidence was gathered, which he wanted to amass. His opening statement revealed that he had many conversations with the President and, more importantly, gave him the ability to reiterate that the President firing him relieved pressure on the Russian investigation. Let's listen a moment.
And on May the 9th, when I learned that I had been fired, for that reason I immediately came home as a private citizen. But then the explanations, the shifting explanations, confused me and increasingly concerned me. They confused me because the President and I had had multiple conversations about my job, both before and after he took office. And he had repeatedly told me I was doing a great job and he hoped I would stay. And I had repeatedly assured him that I did intend to stay and serve out the remaining 6 years of my term. He told me repeatedly that he had talked to lots of people about me, including our current Attorney General, and had learned that I was doing a great job and that I was extremely well liked by the FBI workforce. So it confused me when I saw on television the President saying that he actually fired me because of the Russia investigation, and learned again from the media that he was telling privately other parties that my firing had relieved great pressure on the Russia investigation.
This is the first dagger thrust. The second follows quickly in calling the President and his people liars. Let's listen.
And although the law required no reason at all to fire an FBI director, the administration then chose to defame me and, more importantly, the FBI by saying that the organization was in disarray, that it was poorly led, that the workforce had lost confidence in its leader. Those were lies, plain and simple. And I am so sorry that the FBI workforce had to hear them, and I'm so sorry that the American people were told them.
The third dagger thrust supports Comey's view about the President being a liar when Senator Mark Warner asked him this.
I want to go through a number of the meetings that you referenced in your testimony. And let's start with the January 6th meeting in Trump Tower. where you went up with a series of officials to brief the president-elect on the Russia investigation. My understanding is you remained afterwards to brief him on, again, quote, some personally sensitive aspects of the information you relayed. Now, you said after that briefing, you felt compelled to document that conversation, that you actually started documenting it as soon as you got into the car. Now, you've had extensive experience at the Department of Justice and at the FBI. You've worked under presidents of both parties. What was it about that meeting that led you to determine that you needed to start putting down a written record?
A combination of things. I think the circumstances, the subject matter, and the person I was interacting with. Circumstances first, I was alone with the President of the United States, or the President-elect, soon to be President. The subject matter, I was talking about matters that touch on the FBI's core responsibility and that relate to the President-elect personally. And then the nature of the person. I was honestly concerned that he might lie about the nature of our meeting, and so I thought it really important to document. That combination of things I'd never experienced before, but it led me to believe I got to write it down, and I got to write it down in a very detailed way.
Comey now confirms that he distrusted the president and admitted that he had 9 conversations with him. He also hinted that he was discussing personal issues concerning the president. Don't let that go. He further admitted that he had only 2 meetings with President Obama and 1 meeting with President Bush on a one-to-one basis, and 9 with President Trump. This is the build-up to obstruction of justice. Now let's listen to Senator Frisch and how Comey now starts to build the obstruction of justice case.
There's 28 words there that are in quotes, and it says, quote, I hope, this is the president speaking, I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He is a good guy. I hope you can let this go. Now, those are his exact words. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you wrote them here and you put them in quotes?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that. He did not direct you to let it go.
Not in his words, no.
He did not order you to let it go.
Again, those words are not an order.
No. He said, I hope. Now, like me, you probably did hundreds of cases, maybe thousands of cases, charging people with criminal offenses. And, of course, you have knowledge of the thousands of cases out there that where people have been charged. Do you know of any case where a person has been charged for obstruction of justice, or for that matter, any other criminal offense, where they said or thought they hoped for an outcome?
I don't know well enough to answer. And the reason I keep saying his words is I took it as a direction.
Right.
I mean, this is the President of the United States with me alone saying, I hope this. I took it as this is what he wants me to do. Now, I didn't obey that, but that's the way I took it.
You may have taken it as a direction, but that's not what he said.
Correct.
He said, I hope.
Those are exact words, okay. Correct.
You don't know of anyone that's ever been charged for hoping something. Is that a fair statement?
I don't, as I sit here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
He admits he was not directed, but states that's how he construed it from the meeting. In themselves, these scintillas of evidence or information mean little, but Comey is skillfully building a picture. Senator Feinstein's question was most telling, briefly speaking about Flynn and then asking Comey why he wasn't tougher. Let's listen.
I understood him to be saying that what he wanted me to do was drop any investigation connected to Flynn's account of his conversations with the Russians.
Now, here's the question. You're big, you're strong. I know the Oval Office, and I know what happens to people when they walk in. There is a certain amount of intimidation. But why didn't you stop and say, Mr. President, this is wrong. I cannot discuss this with you?
It's a great question. Maybe if I were stronger, I would have. I was so stunned by the conversation that I just took it in. And the only thing I could think to say, because I was playing in my mind, because I could remember every word he said, was playing in my mind, what should my response be? And that's why I very carefully chose the words. And look, I've seen the tweet about tapes. Lordy, I hope there are tapes. I remember saying, I agree he's a good guy, as a way of saying I'm not agreeing with what you just asked me to do. Again, maybe other people would be stronger in that circumstance, but that's how I conducted myself. I hope I'll never have another opportunity. Maybe if I did it again, I would do it better.
So he was stunned and not strong. The key words here are not those, but these. Quote, I had to remember every word that the president said, end quote. Now ask yourselves why. Why every word, unless he is building a case? Now let's listen very briefly to Senator Rubio. And once again, Director Comey fails to call the president to account. And let's listen to his rather weak answer as to why.
Senator Rubio. Thank you. Director Comey, the meeting in the Oval Office where he made the request about Mike Flynn, was that the only time he asked you to hopefully let it go?
Yes.
And in that meeting, as you understood it, he was asking not about the general Russia investigation. He was asking very specifically about the jeopardy that Flynn was in himself.
That's how I understood it, yes, sir.
And as you perceived it, while it was a request that he hoped you did away with it, you perceived it as an order, given his position, the setting, and the like, and some of the circumstances.
Yes.
At the time, did you say anything to the president about that is not an appropriate request, or did you tell the White House counsel that is not an appropriate request? Someone needs to go tell the president that he can't do these things?
I didn't, no.
Okay. Why?
I don't know. I think as I said earlier, I think the circumstances were such that I was a bit stunned and didn't have the presence of mind. And I don't know, I don't want to make you sound like I'm Captain Courageous. I don't know whether even if I had the presence of mind, I would have said to the president, sir, that's wrong. I don't know whether I would have. Okay. But in the moment, it didn't come to my mind. What came to my mind is be careful what you say. And so I said, I agree Flynn is a good guy.
So on the cloud, we keep talking about this cloud. You perceive the cloud to be the Russian investigation in general.
Yes, sir.
Right? But his specific ask was that you would tell the American people what you had already told him, what you had already told the leaders of Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, that he was not personally under investigation.
Yes, sir.
In fact, he was asking you to do what you have done here today.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Senator Wyden raises the loyalty issue. And here it is quite revealing that Comey is basically saying that by not pledging loyalty, his days then became numbered.
January 27th, all in one dinner, the president raised your job prospects, he asked for your loyalty, and denied allegations against him. All took place over one supper. Now, you told Senator Warner that the president was looking to, quote, get something. Looking back, did that dinner suggest that your job might be contingent on how you handled the investigation?
I don't know that I'd go that far. I got the sense my job would be contingent upon how he felt how he felt I conducted myself and whether I demonstrated loyalty. But I don't know whether I go so far as to connect it to the investigation.
You said the president was trying to create some sort of patronage relationship. In a patronage relationship, isn't the underling expected to behave in a manner consistent with the wishes of the boss?
Yes. Or at least consider how what you're doing will affect the boss as a significant consideration.
Let me turn to the attorney.
Comey then gives the game away while answering a question from Senator Collins.
And finally, did you show copies of your memos to anyone outside of the Department of Justice?
Yes.
And to whom did you show copies?
I asked, President tweeted on Friday after I got fired that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation, there might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel.
The key words being, quote, that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel, unquote. And there is the crux of the matter. The scene has been set all in aid of then appointing a special counsel. Now listen closely to Senator Blunt's observation and question and Comey's response, further supporting our view that Comey was allowing the president to walk into a bear trap.
Said the Attorney General said, I don't want to be in the room with him alone again, but you continue to talk to him on the phone. What is the difference in being in the room alone with him and talking to him on the phone alone?
Yeah, I think what I stressed to the Attorney General is a little broader than just the room. I said, I report to you. It's very important you be between me and the White House.
After that discussion with the Attorney General, did you take phone calls from the President?
Yes, sir.
So why did you just say you need to talk to, why didn't you say I'm not taking that call, you need to talk to the Attorney General?
Well, I did on the April 11th call, and I reported the calls, the March 30th call and the April 11th call, to my superior, who was the acting Deputy Attorney General.
I don't want to run out of time here. Let me make one other point. In reading your testimony, January the 3rd, January the 27th, and March the 30th, it appears to me that on all three of those occasions, you, unsolicited by the President, made the point to him that he was not a target of an investigation.
Correct, yes, sir.
So he took the unsolicited calls, did not report them to anyone, thus meaning that the President would continue to make more of them, and then confirm to the President that he was not under personal investigation, thereby increasing the President's confidence to continue making such calls and further indict himself down the road. Now listen to Senator Manchin and Comey's response confirming the reputation of Special Counsel Mueller.
I believe there were any tapes or recordings of your conversations with the President.
It never occurred to me until the President's tweet. I'm not being facetious. I hope there are, and I'll consent to the release of.
So both of you are in the same findings here. You both hope there's tapes and recordings.
Well, all I can do is hope. The President surely knows whether he taped me, and if he did, my feelings aren't hurt. Release all the tapes. I'm good with it.
Gotcha. Sir, do you believe that Robert Mueller, our new special investigator on Russia, will be thorough and complete without political intervention? And would you be confident on his findings and recommendations?
Yes, Bob Mueller is one of the finest people and public servants this country has ever produced. He will do it well. He is a dogged, tough person, and you can have high confidence that when it's done, he's turned over all the rocks.
You've been asked a wide variety of questions today, and we're going to be hearing more, I'm sure, in our classified hearing.
Looking at their history, it is clear that Comey regards his predecessor at the FBI as a mentor, while Mueller considers Comey his protege. At its worst, Comey has created a roadmap for Trump's removal. In the words of Philip Allen Lacovera, a former Deputy U.S. Solicitor General and counsel to the Watergate Special Prosecutors, quote, any experienced prosecutor would see these facts as establishing a prima facie case of obstruction of justice. We have only heard what has been held in public session. What has been discussed in closed session can only build further on these suspicions. Whether one is a Trump supporter or not, we contend that Comey, from the very beginning, had every intention to ensure that President Trump would be hoisted by his own petard. Will he be successful? Only time will tell. If President Trump is impeached or resigns and is replaced by Mike Pence, we believe stock markets will fall, as Pence will follow an even more fiscally constraining economic policy and will cut the prospect of infrastructure expansion to which President Trump has given a pledge. Such a move would be good for gold and silver initially, at least, whilst markets enter a period of uncertainty. Either way, we have now become quite convinced that President Trump will serve only one term in office, and we shall be most surprised if he has not either resigned or has been impeached before those 4 years are up. And ironically, he may only have himself to blame. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumb up and share it on Twitter. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe as a free member for regular email updates and offers. Our Facebook page, which is updated daily, can be found at facebook.com/IlluminatiSilver. Disclaimer. Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.